Hi, everyone. So today we're going to talk about Canvas managing groups for discussions. This is a workshop designed to complement our Canvas tutorials and will also appear on our City YouTube page. My name is Laura Smith and I am an instructional designer with City. And I'm happy to be giving this workshop today. So just as a friendly reminder that maintaining and introducing and maintaining asynchronous discussion boards in your online class is a great way of meeting Rush online course design standards. And just a quick screenshot here from the standards document. Discussion forums comprise a good chunk of the activities and interactions section of the standards. So by developing discussion forums in your class, whether they be class-wide discussions or group discussions, on which we'll focus today, you can meet many of those standards. So today I'm going to talk about how we'll have a few learning objectives. First, it's really critical to understand first how groups function in Canvas before we discuss the function of discussion groups. So first, we're going to review in brief how groups function. Second, I'll define a few terms because Canvas uses the word group in a few different ways. So I think it's important to have an understanding of what each of these terms mean in order to use them appropriately. We'll create a group set and groups within it. And then after doing that, we will set up a group discussion. So I'll explain how discussion groups function in Canvas. I'll create a group discussion, and then I'll show you how to sync that group discussion both to a group set and also to an assignment group in your gradebook. So some definitions. There are three terms that I'd like to define for this workshop that will help to make better sense of what we'll be talking about today. The first of those is groups, and this definition is taken directly from the Canvas instructor guides. So groups, as Canvas defines them, groups are a subset of a course with a course-like environment, including their own calendar, discussion board, and collaboration tools. Only students added to a group have permission to see and use the respective tools within a group. So they function somewhat like groups function in Blackboard in that each group or each individual member participating in a group has all the usual tools for collaboration that you would find in the course as a whole, but can only use those tools to interact with participants in that group and not in any other groups that have been set up in the course site. So we'll see what that looks like on the Canvas end in a moment. A group set is another term used by Canvas, and next week, there'll be a workshop specifically on groups that will go into this in greater detail, but I wanted to provide you just with a bit of a foundation so you understand how they function. Group sets defined by Canvas are sets that house the different groups within a course. So they kind of work as a kind of umbrella of groups that are contained within it. Before creating a new group set, you may want to view the existing group sets. You can also clone an existing group set, and you can delete a group set. So we'll see when we go in and create a group set, how that might function and how you might want to use it in your course. And then assignment groups, those function a lot like Blackboard Grade Center categories. Those specifically pertain to grading and to sort of chunking or categorizing like assignments in your grade center. So you can set assignment groups for categories of grades like quizzes, final project, discussion. So they're also very useful to set up for the purposes of creating groups and group sets, and then also group discussions in Canvas. So they all, like many of the features in Canvas, work well together and can be synced together in order to best facilitate these groups in the LMS. So we'll come back to those key takeaways momentarily, but we're going to go right into our Canvas course so that I can walk you through some of these features in Canvas. So as I mentioned, it's important to understand how groups function in Canvas prior to setting up group discussions. So the two areas of I'm looking here at my sandbox course, and this is just a kind of playground course that you can request to have set up so that you can, again, play around with some of these functions and create new activities. But for the purposes of today's discussion, we're just really going to talk about these two areas of your course site, which are people and discussions. So first, I will go into people. And this is where you'll see all of the instructors and students who are enrolled in the class. Of course, because this is not a published course and it's not a live course shell, it doesn't have students enrolled, but this is where you'll find your students. As you can see, I've set up a few sort of sample test group sets just to test out the functionality in Canvas. So I'm going to show you how I did that. And then we will create groups within that and then go back to discussions and show you how creating a group discussion can then be tied to these group sets. So as you can see here on the right, there's this green button called Add Group Set. So I'm going to click on that first. And then we can just give the group set a name. So as I mentioned, group sets are ideal for if you have, say, a semester-long group project, or you would like your students to work, you have a very large class, and you would like your students to work in smaller groups for the duration of the semester or on a specific project. You can create a group set name for that particular type of activity or project that can house all the separate groups within it. So in this case, we're going to say that we're going to do another final project because that's typically, or final presentation, typically the kinds of group sets that you'll find. So let's call it final presentation. We're not going to allow self sign up because I'm going to split students into groups. Again, the workshop next week will go into these functions in greater detail. So we're just going to quickly do that for the sake of creating a group discussion. I'm going to split students into 5 groups. And once you click into that, you can just set your number of groups that you want. And there are other functionalities here, which again, the workshop next week will go into. But I'm just going to let Canvas automatically create my 5 groups and so that we can, again, sync a group discussion to those pre-existing groups. So I've created the final presentation group set. It's going to split these students into 5 groups within the group set, and I will click Save and show you how that is done. So you can see here, and you can also retitle this. Canvas has created a final presentation group set, and it has created 5 groups within that final presentation group set into which you can put students either at the time that you create the groups or at a later point. You can also rename these groups by clicking on Edit here. If you want to just call it Group 1, you can do that. This is what we'll do. We'll only go this far today when talking about creating group sets, because really the main focus of today's workshop is on discussion groups. So I just do want to say that first, before we go into discussions, that each of these groups, as you can see, if we click into it, if we visit the group home page for the group, and I will do that now by clicking this drop-down menu. each of these groups has all the functions or all the tools for collaboration that exist in Canvas. So they have access to announcements and pages, discussions and files, collaborations. So they exist as a kind of subset within the larger class group. And then you can switch group by clicking on this drop down here if you still want to stay in those group forums or locations. But we're going to get out of that for now and go back to the sandbox. And then I'm going to click into discussions, and I will show you how to create a group discussion and sync it to, actually what we're going to do first is we're going to go into assignments. And you don't have to go in this order. It is important that you create your group set and groups before creating a group discussion, as it makes it easier then to automatically assign those groups to those discussions or assign the discussions to those groups. But it's also helpful to add an assignment group in case you do want to, this is a graded discussion, you want to be able to sync it to that particular assignment in the gradebook. So in order to do that, I would click on Add Group. And here I'm adding an assignment group. We called it Final Presentation. It's already there available to me. And I would click on Save. Again, all I did was click on Add Group. We're under the Assignments link. And then Canvas automatically creates a Final Presentation assignment group in which I can house activities pertaining to that final presentation in the gradebook. So now I'm going to go into discussions, and I'm going to create a group discussion. So again, I clicked on the discussions link in the course navigation menu. I have a few sample discussions I've already created just for the purposes of playing around here, but I'm going to walk you through how to create that once again. So again, we click on this green button called Add Discussion. This is the same button you would use to add any kind of general discussion to your course, but we can also use it to create a group discussion. So we could call this, if we're going to sync it to our final presentation group set and our assignment group, we can call this Final Presentation, say, Development, something like that. Or something more specific, it's entirely up to you. Then you can populate it with the prompt, whatever you want to add here, whether it be multimedia, attachments, embedded videos, etc., can be added using the rich content editor. But we're gonna scroll down here because this is what I'd like to focus on here. I'll allow threaded options. And I will make this a graded discussion because I would like to show you how the assignment groups function in Canvas. So we're going to create a group discussion now, and you see Canvas automatically provides you with that ability here by letting you click on this is a group discussion. So we're going to click on that, and then we're prompted to select a group set. We will have to select a group set because Canvas will not let us create this discussion unless a group set is identified. Now you can either choose from pre-existing group sets, which will become available to you when you expand this dropdown, or you can create a new group category for this group discussion. So we're going to pick one of the group sets or the group set that we just created so that we can sync it to that group set. So I'm going to select Final Presentation. And I'm going to make this group discussion worth 10 points. So I set my 10 points here. And this is where I would select my assignment group. So again, this is the category in your grade book into which this assignment would be housed. So I would select Final Presentation, the assignment group I just made, so that the grades are grouped there. not going to require peer reviews. And I'm going to remove everyone. And you can see that these are named differently because I retitled that one group, group one. But we're going to assign this to all of the final presentation groups that we just created. So each of those groups will have this as an assignment. Then I'm going to give a due date of next Friday night at midnight, make it available from now until next Friday night. And then that's it. We're going to click save. We haven't yet published it, so we'll want to make sure we do that. You can do that here by clicking save and publish, or you can do that by clicking on the save button and then publish it afterward if you're not ready to publish it yet. So just as a quick review, again, we created the title of our group discussion, we gave it a prompt, we allowed for threaded replies, and we made it graded. And a previous workshop goes more into these options. So if you're interested in learning more about just basic discussion settings, you can look at the workshop on creating and managing discussions. We clicked on this as a group discussion and we chose our group set. And then we assigned it to an assignment group final presentation and assigned it to those 5 groups that Canvas created for us. I'm going to save this and publish it. Canvas is going to prompt me here to say, do I want to add it to or assign it to these other groups that I've created or sections? No, I don't. I just want to assign it to those 5 groups. So I'm going to say continue. And then as you can see here, it creates that group discussion. It tells us that this group discussion has been assigned to or placed within each of the 5 groups, which as a faculty member, you can click into and facilitate and or facilitate and or post to. And it gives you access to that at that point. If we click back into discussions, we'll see that the final presentation development discussion is here in the general discussions. I'm going to pin it, just put it at the top here to make sure that it's important. And then when I go to my people tab and go into those group sets, I'll go into final presentation and I'll go to each of those 5 groups and I'll just click into any one of them. Sorry, here, visit group homepage. And you'll see that if you click on discussions within that group, Canvas has created or added this final presentation development, final presentation 2, by default group discussion to this particular group. And that has done so automatically for each of the final presentation groups. So again, clicking into discussion, and you see it here once again. So we see that it exists now in the discussion groups or in the groups themselves. And then if we get out of that by going into the general course and assignments, we can then add, or you see that Canvas has already put final presentation group discussion in the final presentation assignment group, indicating how many points it's worth and the specifics of that assignment. So as you can see, all of this is synced together. So if you indicate that after having set those groups up, then Canvas will automatically, again, create those group discussions in each of the individual groups to which you have access to post, but which students outside of the group do not. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Again, we can go into these discussions and we can participate. And then, of course, and or oversee how those discussions are going, as well as grade them when they are completed. So that's discussions for groups in a nutshell. Just going back to my presentation. So the key takeaways for this workshop, use groups and group discussions to manage. I would recommend that you use groups and group discussions to manage asynchronous discussions in large classes. So say you have a class of 50 or more, best practice recommends that students are put into smaller groups so they can more easily interact with each other, and you can more easily facilitate those discussions. So it would be recommended then to put these, to break down these larger classes into smaller groups for the purposes of group discussion as a best practice and the best way of managing asynchronous discussions in your large classes. These discussions can be, like the regular discussions, can be graded or ungraded. So again, you can create those discussions in your groups for the purposes of collaboration, but they do not have to be graded. As I mentioned before, you would need to create a group set and groups before creating group discussions. There is a function where you can just create that new category when you set up the discussion, but then it would not automatically create those individual discussions in each of the groups until you create the groups yourself. So there are a couple different ways to approach it. This is just the most efficient way. Canvas will automatically create these discussions in each group when a group set is selected during the discussion setup, and we did that when we selected the final presentation group set. Faculty can access and post to each group's discussion. However, individual groups cannot access other group discussions. They are confined to that group space for the purposes of discussion and collaboration. And then we recommend that you create, or I recommend that you create an assignment group for group discussions and designating it during the discussion setup, or creating that prior to and designating it during the discussion setup for the purposes of more easily grouping your assignments in your grade book. So if there are questions, feel free to reach out to myself or City. Our instructional designers are here to help you during this Canvas transition. You may contact us at CTEI@rush.edu, or you can contact me at Laura_Smith@rush.edu, and I'm happy to help you with this or any other tools pertaining to Canvas or teaching and learning at Rush. So thank you for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.